Dear students, welcome to the second part of the lecture on the evolution of the state and public administration. In the first part, we discussed about the evolution of state and administration and the role of state in developing and developed nations. We concluded that role of state in the developing nations have a different type of facets. We completed the traditional functions of the state in the developing nations. Now, this second part continues other important functions of the state in developing nations. As we discussed in previously, developing nations means India, Thailand, Myanmar, Vietnam, etc. In this, traditional functions are important because people expect maintenance of the law and order, people expect protection of the state from its geographical backgrounds and others. Now, we will further continue the important activities of the state in developing countries. One of the important activity is taxation. After law and order, after protection of the thing, after military formation, after diplomatic relations, any state requires money to conduct its activities, its business, running administration. So, taxation is compulsory. So, the taxation is not a new phenomena, it is the oldest phenomena of the state. Even in Kautilya's Arthashastra, Kautilya mentioned that how much of tax we have to collect from business people, how much of tax from the peasantry, how much of the tax from the people who are coming from other parts of the country, etc. Even the present modern states are doing the same thing, because without collecting the taxes, no administration, no government will run. So, in the developing countries are concerned, a different forms of taxation have been superseded by the elaborated national taxation systems with a growing range of taxes, complicated record system and an array of public collectors and inspectors. Nationalized systems have increasingly confined taxation to public authorities and integrated it with economic and social policies. The government is also on the loan business in a big through its own banking services and loan authorities. It can better estimate taxable capacity and reduce tax seepage, thereby maximizing public resources for community purposes while continuing to supplement taxation and loans with proceeds from the sale of public lands and surpluses of public enterprises. The important activity is here. Previously, the government are going to collect the taxes from the public and they are going to do a different type of benefits to the public, as we discussed previously, construction of roads and others. After the globalization path, in the name of disinvestment policies, governments are started selling out the surplus public sectors or even the public sectors who are in the loss, lands, etc. to various public private organizations, asking them to construct different type of infrastructures. Another important activity in the developing world is the welfare activity. Government has always supplemented private institutions in catering to those unable to look after themselves through no fault of their own. Such public welfare has since been institutionalized by providing public services for orphans, physically handicapped and insane persons and also war widows. The welfare state concept has since transformed and extended these public welfare services. It is important to note that the original humanitarian motives, however executed, have since been extended to Aborigine minorities who until recent decades were decimated as a subhuman species, and also to social minorities who as second class citizens have been exploited or at least denied full participation in community life. So, government's duty is to take care of the welfare of all the people. Along with the welfare functions, another important function is the development functions. Nationalism was able to use the traditional functions of government to promote nation building. For instance, the ideology of the militia was transformed from pecuniary gain and military powers to patriotism when civil conflicts replaced hired mercenaries. Public work boosted the nation's image, but the success of nationalism was largely due to other factors. Today, many new states are trying to employ public administration for nation building purposes. Patriotism needs something more than a distinctive of a flag, a national anthem, a unique coat of arms and public insignia, but such symbols are indispensable beginnings. The government impresses these national symbols on the citizenry until the people identify themselves with them. So, governments all the time going to maintain about these national identities with the citizens. We can have on 15th August, people can have a badge of the national flag. On 26th January, we are having. These are the some examples. But at the same time, national building is not only with these identities. It is required about what type of growth we are providing. For example, Andhra Pradesh, previously Hyderabad, we used to identify with a Charminar. Now we say is a high-tech city or some other thing. So, each and every state, they have started about the different type of identities in the globalization. So, we say software centers in the world. We simply say the 4 cities like Hyderabad, Chennai, Pune, Bangalore. We say these are the software hubs of the world. So, like this, a different type of a national identities are coming through the development functions of the state. Another important aspect is socialization through human resource development. National self-consciousness is awakened early by the education system and by the way certain subjects are taught, particularly history and geography. After school, young adults are further impressed with the national consciousness through state-supported youth movements and clubs, and more obviously in full citizen rights, government elections, jury service, military service and various forms of voluntary civic activity. So, one of the important aspect is here. All the time education is one of the human resource development, HRD, we call about human resource development. What is HRD? HRD is developing the people, development, education, training, all three put together HRD. Just we are giving education not is a human development, just giving about some type of a training is not development. So, these are the important aspect that what type of needs of the society for next 1 or 2 decades and how we are visualizing our universities, our educational systems, institutions, they are visualizing the students for the next 2 decades. So, this is about the development of HRD is one of the important function of the state. At the same time, developing countries can improve the quality of life for all citizens through self-sustained growth, equitable distribution of societal products, wide political participation and individual self-fulfillment without artificial stimulation by public authorities. The government has to ensure that the essential prerequisites for national development are obtained. It must promote the greater productivity, higher standards and prompter action. Public officials as social change agents may teach their clientele new cultural styles and as peace setters spearhead modernization example. National building functions are almost taken for granted in older states. They have been performed so successfully even though public administration may no longer be the most competent institution to handle them. Newer states have no option to go with this type of development functions. Societal vacuum must be filled and public administration is best positioned to do so. As in other areas, by the time other institutions are sufficiently mature to assume much of the responsibility, the functional expertise of the public bureaucracy may be incontestable. So, these are some of the important aspects of the development function so far we discussed. Another important function of the development societies are economic management functions. Governments have always reserved certain economic powers to themselves, such as control of the currency supply, the regulation of trade and commerce and the sale of public lands and monopoly franchise. With the expansion of traditional functions and the assumption of nation building functions, public authorities have grown more involved in economic matters, if only to assure a ready supply of weapons and limitations on economic exploitation of the defenseless. Their economic role has increased in response to the revolution of rising expectations. People expect the government to do more. Community problems have grown with the agrarian revolution, the industrial revolution and urbanization. War technology has assumed a momentum of its own, enlarging the state. Economic management functions as have the rise of collectivist ideologies and the democratization of the political process as the demands of the middle and lower classes have to be considered besides those of elite. So, these are some of the economic management functions. Another important area in the economic management function is development of public sector. The government has become a major economic entrepreneur, providing a wide range of economic products and services directly to the consuming public. Besides the direct supply of public goods, public authorities have also taken over the supply of private goods where private enterprise has failed, where supply has become monopolized, where government has decided to compete with private producers in the marketplace, or where governments have preferred to supply themselves rather than relying on private enterprises. Because of the public sector, it means in the name of a competition is increases in the society, automatically what will happen is a private sector is going to dominate, they simply increase the rates. So, hence the development of public sector, government is going to provide a cheaper rate. Simple example, if government, we are running about a public transport corporations, we are running about railways. So, because they are in the control of the government, they are able to control the prices and they are giving subsidies for the various sections of the society. At the same time, government have always intervened to regulate private transactions, property exchanges, master servant relationships, market prices and working conditions. The scope and extent of economic regulations has been transformed over the past century in response to trade cycles, monetary fluctuations, infant industry production, migration, labor organization, pressure group activity and a host of other factors best illustrated from a sectoral breakdown of economic regulation. Now, the states are, we are calling, it was welfare state. Even now, you take about the political parties manifestos and everything, everybody mentions themselves, they are going to work for a welfare state. The spread of the welfare state, which developed in response to the breakdown of social welfare services provided by other societal institutions and the obvious need for alleviation of poverty in the contemporary society. Private charity could not meet the growing welfare problem resulting from large scale warfare, heavy seasonal and cyclical unemployment, international trade fluctuations, technological displacement and natural disasters. Whenever we talk about the welfare, welfare is basically one important aspect, whether we are providing a food or shelter, clothing, education, health. These are the 5 important areas of welfare. Health is important because human being is going to work or he is going to think if he is good health. Since sickness can be strike at any time, people should be able to obtain medical services anytime regardless of their ability to pay. To this end, government provides medical services to all who cannot provide for themselves either by subsidizing private practice or directly supplying medical services in government offices and employing medical practitioners as public servants. Included are preventive or remedial services, medical research and even ancillary industries servicing the needs of the National Health Service. Whereas the health services deal with the physical and mental well-being, the national welfare services are concerned with those who, although not ill, cannot support themselves or need help in other ways. The services may be delivered at home to needy people, or the needy may be institutionalized. Important categories of the needy include the elderly, orphans, deserted families, handicapped, disabled and unemployable. Education services. The government provides a public school system for all children between the age of 5 and 15, extending the system downward to kindergarten from the age of 2 and the child care centers to below that, and upward to high schools, technical colleges, trade schools, universities, research institutes, and comprehensive adult education courses. So, these are the two important areas, education and health. The duty of the government is to provide the health facilities, education services to all the people on subsidy rates, because all people can't buy these things. In the name of marketization, in the name of globalization, nowadays a lot of private institutions are coming and charging heavy things in all over the country. So, government's duty is to control and regulate these things. Community housing, where private housing is inadequate or too costly for deserving citizen, the government provides adequate housing at subsidized rents and acts as a good landlord. The housing may include recreational facilities, cultural entities, and local services. Along with these facilities, other welfare services like the government caters to those seeking employment, young adults, criminal offenders, social misfits, migrants, war victims and veterans, lonely people, and victims of natural calamities and crimes. Social welfare functions are among the fast growing categories in public administration. They employ large numbers of professional workers in large scale complex organizations. In many areas, they coexist with the private sector so that their functional expertise is not unique. So, these are the important areas of government has to take care about various sections of the society. Then how the government will work? Government will work with the public administration structures, bureaucracy. From the top to bottom, we are recruiting the various people at various organizations. Hence, the effective functioning of these organizations is going to help the government to take all the welfare schemes to the needy people. In the name of the present modern state, we are having a different type of problems such environmental protection. This environmental protection is one of the important area, and we have to teach even a small kids also how to protect our earth. Compared with a century ago, most people enjoy a standard living far above that ever known before. This achievement has been due to humanity's increasing master of the environment and the unmasking of nature's secrets by scientists and engineers. Humanity can virtually do what it wants and is now in a position to explore the heavens, farm the seas, prolong life and eliminate drudgery and communicable diseases. In the conquest of nature, humanity has destroyed irreplaceable natural beauty, exterminated whole species of animals, created deserts where vegetation once flourished, and polluted its environment with his own waste products. When it has exhausted nature's bounty, it has moved on elsewhere to repeat the process, leaving behind eroded soil, disused mines and landslips, ugly scenic scares, piles of discarded litter, discolored waters, stinking organic sewage and dead animals. Conservation had three aspects: the better utilization of exhaustible natural resources, the reclamation of waste and the renewal of no exhaustible resources through reforestation and social renewal. So, the duty of the humanity, at the same time the duty of the state is protect the environment. Slowly mankind is shifting from rural to urban. Once upon a time we used to say India was living in villages. Slowly the scenario has changed. Now the people migration is to urban areas, that too mega cities. So like Hyderabad is growing, for example Hyderabad in our country is growing about almost 70 lakhs, 80 lakhs population. Delhi, Mumbai, Kolkata, Chennai, there are already established metros at more than a 1 crore population. Now Hyderabad and Bangalore also slowly joining with these things. And some of the same thing happening in all over the world. Like a city called Chengdu in China is a fast growing urbanization in the world. Every year 10 to 15 lakh population are adding to the city. So like people are moving to urban areas. The crowding of people into cities has been accompanied by numerous problems for urban residents and municipal administrators. One conclusion reached by serious students of urbanization was that cities could no longer be allowed to happen. they would have to be planned and designed to reduce the severity of urban problems and to make urban living more pleasant. As town planning could not be considered apart from the suburbs and surroundings, regional planning joined urban planning and later still incorporated satellite town schemes, whereby big cities were deliberately reduced in population by the creation of new self-sufficient planned towns retaining direct rail and road links. So, maintenance of urban cities, maintenance of the problems of the urban people, water is a problem, shelter is a problem, moving of the drainage and other things is a problem, electricity is a problem, safe water is a problem in urban areas, and town planning. So, we can calculate all these things. These are the one of the important area for the public administration in developing countries. Protection of human rights is another important area in the developing countries. The Allied powers resolved during the World War II that the war would be followed by a lasting peace that would defend and protect the fundamental rights and freedoms of individuals. Since then, an international system has developed to define such rights and freedom, to gain government adherence to universal or regional declarations of human rights, and to give aggrieved person access to international courts of human rights. Although intention and practice may vary, the fact that individual rights are being defined and elaborated will eventually impact on public laws and practices. After the World War II, there was a lot of problems in Europe and in other parts of the world. But nowadays, international laws are existing and international organizations are existing to control. If any problem happened between the races, between the clans in various parts of the world, immediately the governments are reacting and international laws are coming up and these things. So, public administration has to take care about all these things. To summarize, first, we discussed what is state and how it is evolved. What are the important elements of the state, how it will function, and what are the structures of state, the central level, state level, sub-state level, village level, municipal level, how a different type of institutions are going to function for the human beings. Another important thing we discussed, the state in the developed society and developing society. Particularly in developing society, what type of functions a state has to do. Number one, it has a traditional functions like maintaining relations with other countries, maintaining law and order, maintaining the military system to protect geographical boundaries, etc. Same time, we identified the development functions of the state, identifying the development identity, but at the same time taking the country according to the development of the global things. Nowadays, we identified how new infrastructure systems are coming up, how new communication systems like roads, new ports, new airports are coming in all over the country, we identified. At the same time, we identified about the welfare functions related with health, education, protection of the humanity from environmental areas, and problems related with the urban areas and urban planning and etc. Concluding, we simply see what public administration. In a public administration, whether it is in a developing nation or a developing society or a developed society, it relates each and every activity of the human being. From the morning till night, even in the sleep and everything, public administration and its institutional activity surrounding the human beings. After completing these things, I will pose two questions to you. Identify the development functions of the state in a developing society. Given examples from Indian side. Number two, identify the problems of an urban area whichever is nearer to you. Simply compare what are the problems of an urban area compared with a rural area. For a further study, you can go through